Good afternoon, everyone. You are listening to the Afternoon Buzz, and we have a very special show today, a very interesting history-based show. As we all know, we have Women's History Month this month, March. We have a few stories, and I'm just going to introduce my panel right now. I'd like to call this the awesome panel because, as we all know, we are all awesome here. So we have Cheyenne, Sorbel, Ida, and Alex. Alex is going to be talking, right? Yes. And Kaylee. And Aaron on the board, so thank you, Aaron. Okay, so women in history. We're going to go from the beginning to the very end, current age. So the very first person that we have is Uni Judge. And Cheyenne's going to be telling us a little bit about her, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, Uni Judge was a little bit lesser known character in the whole abolitionist fight, you might as well call it. She was actually one of George Washington's slaves, one of the only known slaves, since most are gone unnamed. And she escaped her escape. It's not only her escape, but it's also her fight against the Fugitive Slave Act of both 1793 and 1850 that gave her such a coveted background. She escaped May 21st of 1840. Sorry, no. Seemingly I got the date wrong. Okay,
it's okay.
Yes. So, but this should be about the 216th anniversary of her escape date.
Oh, wow.
And even though it's her story that makes it so coveted, even though she escaped and had been escaped for over 50 years, had 3 children, and had gotten married, she was still considerably a slave, along with her 3 children, and was still under the risk of capture, even though she had been living in New Hampshire for a while, actually. Her children went by the name of Eliza Staines, Will Staines, and Nancy Staines.
Well, she sounds like a very interesting woman. And one point that you said, she was a mother, she was a wife, she had 3 kids, and yet she was able to, diffuse the Fugitive Slave Act. And that's a very important part that we have to realize. Women can be both the mother, the wife, and the provider, and, go out there and fight. Right? Right, guys? We all know this.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Yep. Moving along, we have Kaylee K with her Lady and the Lamp story, right, Kaylee?
Yeah, well, Florence Nightingale, better known by most people as the Lady with the Lamp, is known for reforming and completely redoing nursing to what it is today. She was a British nurse and reformer during the Crimean War, and in that time she was so disgusted and repulsed by the things she saw with the unhygienic circumstances, doctors just hacking away at limbs, just letting their patients bleed out, that she was like, you know what, I'm going to try and change this for the better. And she was able to do that, thus earning her title Lady of the Lamp by her nightly rounds taking care of these wounded soldiers. She was also able to start a nursing school for women in England, and was able to basically be the mother of modern-day nursing while taking care of and trying to help the poor and impoverished people of India and England. So for all you nurses today, we have her to thank.
Thank you, Nightingale. I'm glad that I don't have to go to a doctor's office and have to see, someone hacking off at limbs. And that's very good that she actually saw that as unhygienic, because pretty much is. So thank you, Nightingale. Thank you, Kaylee, for giving us that story. Okay, from nursing to pilots, we have Amelia Earhart.
Nice transition.
Yes, I know, right? We have Amelia Earhart, and I really do love Amelia Earhart.
What?
I remember her from The Night of the Museum. Has anyone ever watched that?
Yeah.
I love that movie, and
I love it too.
oh my gosh, like I really like her story is amazing. So Alex, you have her story, right?
Yep. All right. Well, she was like a really like amazing person though. She was really mesmerized by like flying at a young age, and she was really just no stranger to taking risks at all because like a lot of people at that time really didn't approve of her doing something like that, and they thought it wasn't like a woman's place, but she just didn't care. And after she graduated from Hyde Park High School, she went to Ort's finishing school in Philadelphia, and and then she attended college, and in January 3rd, 1921, she bought her first plane that she called the Canary, and she used that plane to start all the records that she would eventually break, and it was just like a very meaningful thing to her. And one day she got a call from her future husband, George Putnam, and he offered her a chance to like live her dream and fly. So it was like she left Trespassery Harbor in Newfoundland, and they arrived in Buryport, Wales, and that was like her first time actually like flying, because like with like other men and like people like just were amazed because it was just so weird for a woman to do something like that, and it just gave a lot of like women hope and that sort of thing.
It's breaking the stereotype. We always hear it's a woman's place to be a housewife, or go into shopping, or do cosmetology or something like that. But if women take the initiative and show that we can, and we do all the time, prove ourselves worthy of being a pilot or being a doctor, it's very possible. Okay, we also have some fun news. I was interested because I heard of this woman not too long ago, so I was very interested how she came into conversation today. Hattie McDaniels. I remember from the recent Oscars, Lupita winning for Best Supporting Actress. And then they mentioned her speech that she did over, I guess, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, Hattie McDaniels, and she came up in conversation. So Ida's going to tell us who Hattie McDaniels was and what importance she played in her field of acting.
Thank you, Kelsey. Also, it's kind of a very relevant topic because we're sort of in the crossroads between two historic months. The months of February and March are marked by two historical curtsies. Now entering Women's History Month, we seem to have forgotten that just a few days ago we were commemorating February's Black History Month. But of course, on Sunday, March 2nd, more than 30 million people tuned in to watch Lupita Nyong'o take home her Oscar for Best Supporting Actress, as you said. But as she made her way up the stage, many remembered a much different Oscars back in 1940. It was the 12th Oscars, and that year, Hattie Daniel became the first African American to win an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. She won her performance for Gone with the Wind, where she played Mammy, a house slave. She was born on June 18th, 1895 in Wichita, Kansas, and she was the youngest of 13 children. That's a lot of children. Her parents were former slaves, and her siblings were fellow actors. And perhaps it is this very, very close connection to slavery, only one generation away, that stirred much of the criticism for Hattie McDaniel that she faced for playing a house slave. Of course, the 1939 film Gone with the Wind was received with much opposition by organizations like the NAACP. The movie featured, with the romance, derogatory words, and it portrayed blacks as childlike servants. And this was the very image that civil rights activists were trying to avoid. So, of course, organizations and people would be against a black person whose parents were former slaves playing a part like that,
Well, how do you feel about that, Ida? What's your position on that?
On what?
Do you feel like I like personally, I think it's good that Hattie played such a role. I mean, it kind of broke the ice on African Americans entering the acting field. So, do you think that was just maybe because of the time period that it was in? Maybe that's why it was kind of like too soon, or?
I think. What do I think? I think that, as you said, it was sort of an icebreaker, and it was sort of a miracle that this African American woman was recognized at an award show when she wasn't even allowed to attend the opening ceremonies, and she wasn't allowed to be in any of the advertisements.
And I heard something that she, while accepting her award, she had to sit in the back at the award ceremony, and I thought that was just so sad.
You know, there's still a lot of racism in Hollywood at that time, so you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword. She got herself into the acting career, but at the same time, was she really portraying blacks in a good light? Then again, this wasn't a movie that, you know, racist whites had concocted. It was a book, which a racist woman concocted. But because it was based off a book, and many people fell in love with the romance aspects of that book, I don't think that it was as bad as her critics say. Also, a little tidbit, there was a lot of gossip going around in the 1960s that civil rights activists broke into, she was a Howard graduate, broke into Howard where her Oscar award was being stored, and they threw it in a river.
Oh my god.
Although that was just speculation, but it is true that her Oscar is missing and nobody is able to find it. Which is pretty mysterious.
That is very strange. I hope that no one did anything like that. Okay, well, we're going to move on to the next person. The person, I believe, is a playwright, and she passed away, right?
Yeah.
In around this general period of Hattie McDaniels, Jane Murfin, right?
Yeah.
So Sorrybell's going to have a story on that.
All right. Well, Jane Murphy, known as Mrs. Jane Murfin. I think she got married, and that's why her name changed to that. But she was born in Michigan, here in the United States, and she wrote a play, and she wrote books and most of that stuff. But one of the plays was called Lilac Time, and I kind of want to check it out now because I've never really heard of her until now. But since she was born here, it makes it more interesting because most playwrights don't really
break it out.
Yeah, and she's not really known. I guess that's why it's like
you just wanted to get more information about her. So
yeah,
guys, check out, what is it called again?
Lilac Time. That's a play that
Lilac
she
Time. Okay. Thank you for the little acting news. I'm just going to have my little story that I found very close to my heart. And I remember hearing about and this is a very current story, the first Hispanic woman in the Supreme Court. And her name is Sonia Sotomayor. She was appointed by Barack Obama, the first black president, appointing the first Hispanic woman in the Supreme Court. So I feel like we have reached new heights here. So she started off as a Puerto Rican Bronx native in, of course, New York City, and she had to work hard to get to where she was. She pulled herself through school. She graduated from Yale Law School. She passed the bar exam in 1980. She did all these steps. She got recognized by Bush, by Senator Kennedy, and eventually she made her way to the Supreme Court. And it was based on pure perseverance, a lot of schooling, hard work, her mother's wish, her family's wishes. And I feel like the overall message that we have here today is that you can do whatever you want, no matter what race you are, what gender you are, how impossible it seems. If you put in the hard work and you persevere and you actually try, then it's all possible.
Yeah,
and
it will pay off.
every single woman that we spoke about today is a pure example of that. So that was our little rendition of just giving you the history of the women from the very beginning, and it goes back farther than that. And here's to the future for women and all equality for all. Okay, so thank you, Cheyenne, Sorabel, Ida, Kaylee, Kay, Alex, and Aaron on the board. I was your host, Kelsey. I hope to see you and hear from you next time. Bye guys. Afternoon Buzz.